Three blocks P, Q and R are in contact on a horizontal surface as shown. The mass of P is 4 kilograms and the masses of Q and R are each 2 kilograms. A horizontal force of 20 newtons is applied to P so that all three blocks move together. The friction force between P and the surface is 2 newtons, and the friction force between Q and R and the surface are each 1 newton. What is the magnitude of the force that R exerts on Q? So naturally, the first thing that we should do here is work out the total acceleration of the blocks as a whole, because then we can look at what happens to the acceleration of each block as dependent on each of the forces on it. So we have 20 going forward, and then we have 2 plus 1 going back, which is 4 newtons. So we have 16 newtons in total. And then the total mass is 8 kilograms of this block, of these three blocks. So we have 16 newtons divided by 8 kilograms equals 2 meters per second squared. And so we want to find the magnitude of the force that R exerts on Q. So if we draw this situation in P, we have that R exerts a force on Q and Q exerts an equal and opposite force on R. P exerts a force on Q, Q exerts an equal and opposite force on P. And we know each of them has an acceleration of 2 meters per second squared. But if you notice, each Q has 3 forces on it because it has those two, and then it has friction here of 1 newton. R also has a friction of 1 newton. And then P has a friction of 2 newtons, which we don't need to worry about in this case because we're looking mainly between Q and R. So working out the forces on Q is actually going to be not difficult, but it's going to involve more than if we just worked out the force of Q on R, because that's equal and opposite to the force of R on Q. So if we look at the forces on R, then we have the force of Q on R, take away the 1 newton. That's equal to the mass of block R, which is 2, times its acceleration, which is 2. So F Q to R equals 4 plus 1, which is 5 newtons. And that's B. Now, what you would have had to do if you did it for Q is you would have had to work out the force from P on Q, or the force of Q on P. So we need to look for a way to simplify things where we can use the least amount of algebra or mathematics possible. So if we know, based on Newton's third law, that R on Q is the same as Q on R, we need to exploit that or use that fact in order to simplify the algebra. So look for these kinds of things. If you notice there's going to be too much involved on one, you can get away with it through brute force if you can save time elsewhere. But given that you're trying to save time in as many questions as possible, try to look for where the calculations might be easier, or use a Newton's law type of solution here that might help simplify things. Hopefully that makes sense. But if you have any questions, please do let me know.